Oh my Lord. Oh. Yeah, she a big girl. Oh, she was barely hooked. I still haven't lost one on this stinking hook yet though. What a chunky monkey.
All right, I'm over at BKK with Joe, and we're gonna talk about some new hooks.
Hey guys, Joe here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a deep dive into why this $880 rod is the best rod on the planet for scoping. I introduced you guys a few weeks ago to a video that was like the day I found the best scoping rod ever, and I figured it was important to kind of emphasize why. If you're going to invest this much money into any piece of fishing equipment, whether it be your forward-facing sonar, whether it be a $400 glide bait, whether it be an expensive rod like this, I want you to know why it's great. I don't want you to just see a JDM rod and think, the price tag is high, I need it. I want you to know why I think it's the best. And there are some really specific reasons why. There's also some specific reasons that I'm going to go very deep into on what you need to know about it, because if you're not ready for this level of performance, it can actually get you in trouble. So let's kind of dive into why I think this rod's the best, and why, if you are willing to spend this money, why this is the rod for you. That all starts with this blank. All right, the blank in the Jackall Poison Ultima is called their Spiral Core X technology. And when you have a spiral wrap blank, what it does is it resists torsional twisting. All right, if any of you guys have ever set the hook and felt your rod kind of like wiggle around all weird, A, that could be because your line might be super light and stretchy, but B, it also could be because the rod blank itself doesn't resist torsional twist. And that's really, really important at the initial phases of a fight. When you first set the hook on a fish, you want to be able to gain control of him quickly, and you can't do that if your rod's like flopping around and the blank is twisting. This high quality Core X technology, this super high-end graphite, it's one of the reasons the rod is so stinking expensive, but it also gives you a huge, huge advantage at the most pivotal time of the fight, and that is the second the fight ensues. So, Spiral X core technology, very, very important. The other thing we want to note is, even though I've already mentioned this is the lightest rod I've ever held, it's also the most sensitive because we have this hollow shell core handle. All right, this handle is actually hollow. And what that does is it transmits bite sensitivity into our hand extremely quickly. Now, why is that important specifically when we're talking about scoping fish? Well, it's important because when fish tend to eat a minnow, when you're hanging that jighead minnow, that little 6-inch Sakamata, when you're hanging it and that fish comes up behind it and kind of mouths it, he usually swims into the bait and doesn't turn one way or the other. You often don't feel them bite. I know when I first got into hanging a minnow and Nico rigging with forward-facing sonar, sometimes I noticed if I was still like tapping the rod and twitching it, I think it was there, I think the bite was there, and then I didn't even know he was there for like 4 or 5 or 6 twitches until I set the hook on him. And it wasn't until I realized what type of tool I really needed was I able to kind of get a hook into fish quick, get the upper hand really early on in the fight right as it ensued, and that's when my landing percentage really started to increase and go up real high. So, Spiral X core technology, hollow handle, these are two of the things that make this rod so amazing. So without further ado, guys, let's kind of dive into the video. I'll shut up for a little while. Let's watch some cool fish catches. All right, guys, this is the first time that you're going to notice this technology really at work and this specific rod model really do its thing. The model that I like to use is the 270M. That's a medium power rod. You're going to notice that when you rear back to make a cast, it doesn't load up that much. I'm going to rear back, the rod barely loads up, and then launches that bait forward. Now let's watch it in full speed. Wind up, launch it out there, be super accurate.
Come on. Oh, God, you're so hot for teacher. Eat her.
All right, here's the next point that the Poison Ultima really works to our advantage and is a performance machine built for the angler. And it's at the time of bite detection. We already talked about how you can feel that bite transfer into your hand because of that hollow shell of a handle, okay? Once you feel that bite and you start to move on that fish to set the hook, the rod, again, wanting to be a super straight rod because it's super high-end carbon, helps us put pressure on that fish very early in the hook set rather than load up and be super parabolic. So quick bite detection and quick pressure helps us get a hook driven into that fish really, really quickly. And then, just like we talked about in the intro, that Spiral X core technology keeps the rod from twisting torsionally. We don't want it getting sloppy on us. And you can even see that it wants to twist and turn, but the rod helps me stay down the center, keep that tip up high, and get a really, really good hook in that fish, and then start to gain the upper hand quickly. I get control of that fish early on in the fight, and it gives me the best odds to landing him. Let's watch and see how it all plays out.
Got her. She's literally dragging the boat around. Oh, there's two more big ones right there. Isn't it crazy I rolled out here in between all these boats? It just... I kind of know where the good spot is, like the spot within the spot. And she's finally done. Oh, she's bigger than I thought. She's actually a good bit bigger than I thought. Got the shot. Oh, really? Okay, cool. It's a big one, dude. That fish is no joke. Oh, he bit it and I missed him. Oh, I'm gonna get him. I won't let him do that to me twice. think it's a walleye though. Oh! No, it's a drum. Oh, maybe not. It's definitely not a walleye. It's either a drum or a smallmouth. Came up like a smallmouth, but it's fighting like a drum. I think it's a smallie. Come on, be a smallie. Yep. Jesus. Back down he goes. I think it's bigger than the last one.
The next point we want to discuss, guys, requires that we rewind a little bit. I didn't want to be too mouthy or wordy in the beginning, but it's important that you understand one thing about rod construction, and that is anytime that you have high-end graphite, the rod wants to return to its original straight form much faster than low-end graphite. Okay? We don't use high-end graphite just because of its sensitivity. We use it also because the rod wants to be powerful and it wants to be straight and it wants to fight that fish on a big like jig hook or EWG better on that high-end rod. Okay? The rod wants to be straight. So let's take a look at this. We're fighting this smallmouth right now, and if you look at the shape of the bend isn't down towards the handle. And as soon as this fish comes to the surface, the rod's really going to want to straighten out. It's going to do its best to keep tension on that line so we don't lose this fish. So this is the high-end graphite working to our advantage. Anytime that fish jumps, the rod's not going to be slow. It is going to react with that fish to try to keep tension on that line.
Gosh, he is mad. Jumping around like crazy.
Oh, it's chunky.
Yeah, she's a big girl. Oh my Lord! Oh, yeah, she a big girl. Oh, she was barely hooked. I still haven't lost one on this stinking bait or on this stinking hook yet, though. What a chunky monkey.
Last important point I told you guys I would reach in this video is we're going to talk about how the high performance of this rod can get us in trouble. All right. Previously, we spoke about how high-end graphite wants to straighten, which is great when we're trying to get a hook in a fish. It's awesome at getting a hook and pressure into a fish early in the hook set rather than waiting to hit the power curve in the rod down low. But if you're fighting a fish boat side, you want to make sure you're using a super high-end reel because this rod wants to fight back against that fish. All right? You need a reel that is going to bow or give way to that fish. That can only be achieved right now in 2025 by buying a reel that's at least $400 or $500 or $600. The only other way it can be achieved is by buying a reel that is big in size. You need a reel that has a drag washer that has a ton of surface area. The reel I have on this rod that I tested it with for the first 100 fish is the Daiwa Exist 3012H. Now this old school reel is actually like a 4,000 size reels today. So if you were to get into like say the Shimano Twin Power or the Shimano Stella, you're gonna wanna go to at least a 3,000. For me, I would go to a 4 though. If that fish surges on me when I'm close to the boat, I want to make sure my drag washer doesn't take added pounds of pressure to initiate my drag. If you use like a $100 reel, it takes extra line or extra pressure to get that drag initiated and start spinning. If we look back at videos from like 2006, Ike and Ellie, he's always hand stripping extra line off of his reel. And that's because it took so much added pressure to get your drag started when it was already stopped. Once the drag got moving, it would spin really, really easy. You need to spend the money even in 2025 on a super high-end drag system. That's what you get when you spend $400 to $600 or $700 or $800 on a spinning reel these days. So spend the money and get it, and make sure you get one that's big enough. All right, guys, enjoy your time on the water. This rod will help you get a better hook in them, help you fight them, help you land them, but you have to make sure you're utilizing this tool properly. Thanks for checking out the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you out on the water. Peace. We got him. Oh, and it's a dandy.
I'm Joe LaBarbera, and welcome to the Outer Realm.